Great, thank you. So who are we? We are an international charity who works in over 70 countries with programs involving inclusive education and economic inclusion, amongst other things. We work hard to break barriers that deny disabled people the basic rights. So yeah, our main purpose is we exist to improve the life choices of people with disabilities and to play our part in building a fairer world. So the purpose of this brief presentation is mostly to talk about the work that we are doing in economic inclusion and technology. We particularly working in countries, we've been working for a very long time in countries like India and Kenya, with inclusion programs, particularly into livelihoods. And now we are at stages in which we want to use the power of technology to be able to escalate the work that we are doing in these countries. This is often done through looking at the what have we done in our programs, what works, and finding potential partners or potential solutions that will enable us to escalate the work that we are doing. Currently, as I said, this is done through livelihood resource centers, where individuals come and get receive an assessment of their skills, their career interest, and the type of work that they'll like to do. They access training, employability skills training, and then we work with private sector organizations to start thinking about or to know what kind of jobs these candidates can access, achieving great results so far. So as you see, the challenge in terms of inclusion, economic inclusion, is that 80% of people with disabilities in developing countries are unemployed, and we at Leonard Cheshire, we work to work on this challenge. So what is the role of technology in all of this? Well, we know through a few global findings that 80 interventions, assistive technology interventions, lead to positive outcomes in job performance. It not only improves job performance, but also sort of increases the level of confidence of people to retain and stay in employment. The increasing recognition of the business the business disability model for employers is helping raise awareness and a better understanding of the role of technology in this sector. So what we know is that this insights in technology is that investing in technology, we are more likely to achieve better results when it comes to people being placed and retaining employment. Okay. Furthermore, in developing countries, what we've discovered through our through co-creation research is that in general there's a lack of digital technology skills, lack of confidence, afraid of the use of technology, ICT barriers, lack of support from family, community, and other digital services, lack of understanding of the concept and the notion of disability. There's a need for understanding AT training roles within organizations, for training, and AT generally is perceived as a very expensive sort of solution to implement in the workplace. So what we're doing in terms of programs internationally and nationally to start implementing technology, we are testing pilots in digital technology and pathways for skills building. And we identify new ways of supporting inclusive work environments for women and men with disabilities. And we are actually developing and testing devices and identifying new ways of supporting people at higher risk. In this way, we've identified 5 areas in which technology interventions can support people with disabilities accessing employment. First of all, technology can help us identify disabled people. then it can help us assessing the skills and the barriers that people are facing in employment. It can help us develop a skill training for them, remote training, for example, matching people with jobs, and finally, the last area is supporting them whilst they are in employment. The way we aim to do this is through private sector partnerships, as a way of being as efficiently implemented technologies. So in general, we work through a partnership model, not only with private sector, but also governments and the civil society, disabled people organizations, and with private sector particularly, we working to improve inclusivity and accessibility in the workplace. Through reasonable adjustments, through understanding technology, how technology can change the shape, the type of work that people is involved. So as you can see, partnerships is at the center of the activities that we do. To put an example, we've in our India program that I mentioned earlier, where we supporting disabled people into employment, we've created a digital pathway by which people is able to, or we're designing people is able to get assessed or self-assess through digital technologies that might be done through a mobile phone application, which is called i2Talent, or through an online portal. We'll be working with Accenture, trying to shape and develop this accessible and inclusive tool. And it is devolving into a portal that is a summary and includes several tools that are being developed by different organizations to support that pathway. Additionally, we are also working into another program called Innovation to Inclusion to support people with disabilities in Kenya and Bangladesh accessing employment, where we are applying a similar model, but in this case, we are using different partnerships. So we are identifying potential technology companies in Bangladesh and Kenya that can help us deliver this model. One of those examples is Fusu, which is a mainstream employment platform in Kenya, which follows a very similar model to support people into employment. And our intervention with them is to partner with them to help transform their existing platform, where many mainstream employers are already advertising, and where many people with disabilities, many people in general are using, to make it more accessible and inclusive, and open that same work stream for people with disabilities. Just to give you an idea of all the kind of works that we are doing as well at national level in the UK, we're working with mysense.ai in predictive health analytics, and this is a piloting program where we are gathering information about disabled people in our homes to be able to assess future problems that they might have, or develop solutions based on existing current data. We're also working with Grid 3 as a part of a smart box, improving communication options for people who are severely disabled in terms of communication. And finally, we are about to start a project with Google to better comprehend a speech with Google Assistants, and this will be done by placing Google Assistant devices within some of our Leonard Cheshire homes. And yeah, so if you have any questions, please, now's the time, and also you can email me.
I'm just wondering about data protection, or particularly in your last part when you said we go to Google Assistants. No longer certain companies collecting data. How do you protect the data of people with disabilities being exploited for commercial reasons? And well, that was my main question. Just, what your thoughts on that are?
Yeah, as you might know as well, we in Europe, you know, the GDPR guidelines, and we try to put that into the GDPR guidelines by anonymizing the data and making sure that we get the consent from the people who candidates are participating in the program. So I think these are very clear guidelines for ourselves. You know, the mic on? The mic on? Sorry. It's on. It's off now. Press again. You press again.
It's on now. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry. My fault. Yeah. Sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry. Just very quickly to summarize, I was saying that we're working according to the GDPR guidelines currently existing in the UK, which to make sure that we are protecting the data and the privacy of the people with disabilities that are involved in the program. Yeah. If anybody has any more questions or from online.
Hi, nice to meet you. You talked about digital tools that you use at the beginning of the process to find whatever a person likes to work or what he's good at. What kind of tools do you use? You use tools that you made or tools that are existing in the country that you are working?
So I think there's a combination of both, but we particularly now have a huge emphasis on helping developing tools that can help candidates. So part of the things that we mentioned, we've worked with Accenture developing, for example, an assessment tool a registration tool that facilitates the registration of candidates into our programs. We are partnering with Microsoft to develop an skills assessment tool to develop to be able to better understand what are the needs, the needs of people being placed in employment and their skills. So these are things that we envision and we want to help develop, and we're looking for partnerships to be able to do that. We also have existing tools like the job ability platform has already been developed and we can already implement this elsewhere. And then through many of our programs have sort of access to work schemes where we empower people with disabilities to be able to access employment. That might be through providing assistive technologies and existing solutions.
Thank you.
Hello? Yes. I'm just curious. Is it maybe I may be right if that you may be going into the different institutions and seeking what kind of skills persons with disability may have, and then try and help skill them so that you may then go request for their attachments in terms of inclusion.
Yeah, so that's part of we working with DPOs, disabled people organizations across countries to identify candidates or beneficiaries who want to access employment. Then we work with, we have assessment systems. At the moment, we don't have them digitalized. This is a manual process that we do in our centers. But through that assessment process, we identify the skills that people might need for employment. Now, the next step is to identify. The next step is to be able to provide them with the skills learning. So we have in India, for example, we have I think it's called Skills to Succeed program, which we provide the set of skills that we have identified certain candidates might be lacking. And then having provided them with those skills, we then identify private sector organizations who are willing to employ our candidates and place them in those positions.
Just to follow up, so which means as you identify those skills, you are there to help gather these persons and just have them acquire these skills. Yes, you have already said, then you identify the different institutions who may be interested in employing them. And my next question would be, who then supports you in terms of helping them acquire such skills in terms of sponsoring?
Yeah, thank you. Sorry. So we have our own sort of training programs, and for example, the I2I program, which is Innovation to Inclusion program, is funded by the DFID, the Department for International Development in the UK, and the skills we identify in training centers, technical skills training centers in both countries, Kenya and Bangladesh, to help them create more inclusive modules. We also identifying online training providers, and we are working with them to make those skills courses more accessible. Yeah. Yep.
Hi. I'm just wondering in regard to speech and text, like for instance, Microsoft speech writing text. Do you see any future in how it can adapt to people with speech impediments?
Thank you. Yeah, I think as I mentioned earlier, we're working with one of the sort of partnerships that we are working with the Smartbox is in improving communication options for people. I don't know a lot about this program. I think Steve is working very closely with them, and he'll be able to tell you more about them. But I think it's specifically designed for people who are having higher difficulties with communication. Yep.
Mr. Perez, we're about to finish your session, but it was very interesting. May I just end with the last question? Since you talk about different tools, you work in different countries, could you speak to a bit about cultural adaptation? What tools work in different contexts and how you might go about adapting them?
Yeah. As I sort of mentioned earlier, what we've developed is a digital model for inclusion. And the benefit of having a model is that it's flexible and adaptable. So when we want to implement that in a particular country, what we're looking at is the particular partners that we can work with. So I was mentioning Fuso in Kenya. The reason why we want to work with them is because they already are a mainstream platform, and they already are it's already understood and people use it. And I think use is very important when it comes to transforming practices. So by tackling that problem, by transforming something that is mainstream into something that is also inclusive and accessible, you're working in sort of the locality. Then when you want to work in a different country, what you're trying to apply is the model rather than the solution in itself. Or the technology that we have developed, which that's also an alternative. You can have a sort of blank slate tool that we've developed, that you develop and transform it somewhere else. But it's different scales of intervention. And for example, in the case of Bangladesh, rather than having an all-encompassing tool, what we are identifying is different partners for the different aspects of the digital pathway that can help us, for example, for the job matching. And we are working with a mainstream employment platform, making it as well accessible.
Thank you very much. We've sadly run out of time. Thank you for a great presentation, Mr. Perez from Leonard Cheshire, and have a good afternoon.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for coming.